Yo, what's up everyone? I'm back once again. This time I finally finished Rise, did the whole story, fought all the monsters, got to HR 100, the whole 9 yards. It's not like I didn't know what was coming, I played it on the Switch, so it was just a matter of reliving the experience on PC, and I just wanted to talk a bit about it, express my feelings, talk a bit about Rise itself. Didn't really have an opportunity on my last video because that was low rank. It would be a bit weird to talk about the entire experience when you're in low rank, so this time is the best opportunity I have to discuss a couple of things, things that I like, things that I don't, and in this circumstance I just wanna review a couple of stuff. I do think that the game is a bit seen on a negative light. While I do think that it does some things wrong, I still have an opinion to the game that doesn't really reflect what people see in general, and I just wanted to go over it. But first of all, discussing high rank. So this was the second time I arrived at high rank. The first one being on the Switch, of course. And the increase in difficulty, it's a bit weird for me to explain. The difficulty, I think, comes more... I don't even think that the monsters really become more intelligent. I do think that they become a bit spammier, which is an issue I have with Rise. A lot of these monsters, instead of having a better AI in the terms of being a bit more strategic, maybe being successful in attacks that will close the distance and kind of corner you, I feel like they just start spamming and not stopping still for a moment, just continuing the reputation the game has for being fast as fuck. I definitely think that's where most of the difficulty comes from. I noticed, for example, Nargacuga being a big one in low rank. After some attacks he kind of stands there and is slowly walking, assessing you, but in high rank he's just going all over, having a spasm, and it becomes notably harder to hit, and when the monsters become harder to hit, they become harder to topple and harder to get KOs if you're using blunt. So I do think that's the most noticeable thing, outside of attacks of course. I think it's the most noticeable thing that we have in high rank, just the movement of the monsters. It's weird for me because I do like monsters not staying still, it's more realistic. If you're having this deathmatch with someone, you're just not standing still for them to hit you. Of course, that's obvious, but I do feel like some monsters just take it up just not one notch. They take it way too far at how increased the movement is from low rank to high rank. Some monsters are not even hard, they're just annoying to hit because their attacks cover distance, so they're constantly going from one corner of the map to another. Anjanath is an example of this. I really dislike fighting Anjanath without a shield. Reason being because most of his attacks cover a big distance, so if you're close to him, if you're using a weapon like Dual Blades, which is my example from the Switch, half the time you're just running after him because he's just doing this attack that you dodge, and he just keeps doing the attack, goes to the other corner of the arena, and you have to chase after him, and when you get there he'll do a similar attack to go back to the beginning or the starting point of the arena, and you go back to chase him. Some fights are definitely more annoying for this reason. Feels like a game of cat and mouse, and not in a good way. You're just constantly chasing monsters or just dodging and clicking the evade button until they stop having until they stop having a spasm. So I really think that the AI should be a bit smarter and a bit more deliberate. I'm fine with monsters taking small breaks if it means they're smarter in their attacks, and if their attacks become easier to dodge because of positioning instead of just having to dodge randomly as they're going across the map. But obviously it does an increase in difficulty, in damage, but I do think some monsters take it a bit too far with their attacks and the distance they cover. But in terms of progression, which is something I wanted to mention, I do like the progression. I think that they give you useful armor pieces earlier. For example, you can get Rhinoplus in the second quest rank of high rank. I'm giving this example because I was using Charge Blade, which already gives you a good artillery. Maybe too much, in fact, because I'm pretty sure Rhinoplus gives you 3 artillery in high rank. But I really do appreciate how they attempted their best at trying to give us useful skills that we can use without having to go half of low rank or half of high rank with low rank gear. And it just feels right. I feel like if you're playing the game as intended, you're having most of the skills you need, you're doing just the right damage so that fights don't take too long, especially if you're using Raw, of course. Raw's just so good in Rise. It's almost pointless to use Elemental with Raw, it's insane. But you definitely always can be up to where you're supposed to be with the gear, and I do appreciate that the skills you are given are useful. It's not like they just keep giving you, botanists until mid-high rank. I'm pretty sure that the progress in terms of armor and weapons is better in Rise and Elfie Tank. I remember in World having to kill way more monsters than I should for decent gear, and in Rise I feel like those skills, those armor pieces, they're more readily available for you. As I said, maybe even a bit too soon for certain aspects, but I did enjoy the progress. I just, building sets always felt good to me. I do think that in late high rank some armor pieces become a bit too strong. I think that Rise was trying to catch that midterm with World, because with World, well, no, that's false. I'm thinking of Iceborne, but I think they're trying to deviate from that because Iceborne became a bit too ridiculous, towards end of base Iceborne, and then when the DLC started dropping with the whole multi-decorations, the skills started piling up really fast. But with Rise it's weird because they pile up in a different way. I do prefer high rank World in terms of this system, at least at the end. With World I definitely felt that we could have just the right skills, we didn't have too many. With Rise, well, I do think sometimes you get too many skills. I think it's ridiculous, some pieces like the Teostra helm. It gives you 1 level, 1 slot, 3 crit eye and 1 crit boost. That's pretty ridiculous. That's master rank in World, and as you might understand, I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to World because, well, they're both 5th gen. So as I was mentioning with high rank World, and since I went back to it to do the entire high rank content in World, I felt like you could pretty much, how do I put it, you could make every set you wanted if you weren't greedy. It definitely seemed like I could fit everything I wanted, and I'm talking about Charge Blade, which is a weapon that requires some skills. And I felt like I could just put enough. I couldn't put insane amounts of skills. I could just put the right thing for that set and specific work. If it was Elemental, I would just have max Elemental, no load shells, guard up. I could just fit enough for my set to be as well crafted as I wanted it to be. In Rise, I feel like we're in Iceborne. It's ridiculous the amount of skills you have. It's ridiculous how you can have 7 crit eye, 7 attack boost, crit boost, weakness exploit, all in one set. It's baffling, especially considering all of these skills like attack plus and crit, they're level 2 skills. But the armors give you such value, which is what I was mentioning. Rise is trying to oh god damn it, sometimes I can't speak English. Differentiate itself from World. But it's getting to the same point. Iceborne, we had a ton of decorations with some skills. In Rise we have a ton of skills with not that many decorations, but it's just insane to me. Pieces like the Teostra Crown, like I mentioned, and then you also have, for example, the Ingot Greaves. They're super early into high rank. I think you can get them by Lava Caverns. Lava Caverns or Flooded Forests? I think it's Lava Caverns. Don't quote me though, but one of those, so pretty early on, and it's ridiculous the value that they give to attack boost, to crit eye, so I'm scared for Sunbreak, because if we keep giving more skills and more armor slots, it's just gonna be insanely ridiculous to me. We're gonna have way too many skills. To be fair, I do think they won't really touch the decorations in Sunbreak. Most probably they went a bit too far in high rank, but in master rank, when there's more skills that we want in our weapons, and if the slots stay the same, which I think they will, I don't think they'll go crazy with the slots like they did with Iceborne. I think it will go to the right number. I can't really predict what skills we'll get, of course, but I do assume that we'll get new skills that are worth using. I mean, I just don't see them adding new skills for us not to touch them. Of course, you know, this goes back to the issue of crit meta, which I think should just disappear. But I just don't see it happening. I think they're here to stay. I don't see them removing crit skills, or at least one of them. They could nerf them, but I just don't see it. I think we'll have the same meta. But hopefully they'll introduce competitive skills. But as I was mentioning, the progression feels really good until we get to late game. Then it gets a bit too polluted. Especially if you roll some good charms. If you roll some good charms, you can fit everything. Or you mod them, of course, but that's a drama for another time. But overall, I really enjoy the progression. Rise is that kind of game for me. When I get to the end, it gets a bit boring, there's not much to do, but the journey there is one I really enjoy. As you're unlocking shit and the progression in general, especially with armor, I really do enjoy it. Sometimes getting gems is a pain for armor, but I still think it's fine. I think if you use the right tools that the game gives you, which they do, then you should be able to get gems without much of a concern. But now, something I really wanted to mention is the gameplay itself. Upon playing a ton of Rise on PC, on Switch I have 300 hours, on PC I already have 100, probably a bit less. It's a bit inflated, it's definitely inflated, because sometimes I try to play during work, so I just leave the game running while I'm working, so it's definitely inflated. But the combat it's weird for me, because I enjoy it, but I don't think it's good at all. It's hard for me to explain. The fluidity, I mean the fluidity is amazing. The game flows fine. But the general speed, as I was mentioning with the monsters, is an issue for me, and the reason is, when we the hunters have so much speed, the monsters need speed as well, but the issue is that some monsters just they're not the speed type. Yeah, Nargacuga can be speedy, yes, of course, Tigrex as well. But an example of this is Teostra. Teostra is not a fast hollow dragon. His strengths lie in other aspects of him, but speed isn't one of them. And what happens when we the hunters have so much mobility, the monsters need to somehow try to match that, and with monsters like Teostra, they become spam lords to try and catch up to us. That's why the Astra has so many explosions, so you can just wirefall out of everything. But the issue is that the combat itself becomes really weird, because these monsters are just spamming you outright. And there's just so much you can do when a monster is dropping 10 explosions at a time. What are you supposed to do, you know? I also think that's how they try to claim some positioning, but due to the fact that weapons have counters, all of them or most, I mean, even if you try to force the hunters to be deliberate and be positioned, the speed itself does not allow for it, or the spamming of the monsters, so they have to resort to the intended gameplay, I'd say, which is just countering everything, and this becomes the problem with me. I think that all of these counters just, they only do harm. I don't think dual blades should have a parry. Dual blades are mobile enough, and a good dual blades user should know where to attack the monster and always keep the stamina for evading, because with dual blades and even bow, where stamina is a real management you have to take into account, then you can't just attack until the stamina gauge goes out. You need to save some stamina for evading in case the monster does something you weren't expecting, or if you know you're in position of being hit. But with Rise you don't need to care about that nearly as much, because you have these get out of jail cards, and it takes the incentive to learn a monster. That's why I don't like these parries. They're worse than Longsword, because at least with Longsword you have to know the monster's pattern to dodge or to counter. You have to know what they're gonna do. But with these, as soon as you see the monster move, you can use them. You can use the dual blades, Shrouded Vault. If you didn't get the counter, you get far away from the monster, taking the time to position yourself. So I think they're still good, which also brings me up to Wirebug skills. I also think these are troublesome. The biggest issue for me is, I think that Wirebug skills should be between what they are now and GU's Hunter styles or Hunter arts. With GU sometimes they took too long to be used. To be fair, some of them were that kind of skill that you wanted to keep for when the monster is down, because they're really strong, but if you fail them, then you wasted a ton, but that's also because it took longer to charge. While Rise, as of right now, has the mentality of the Wirebug skills are, how do I put it, they're your loop, they're part of a loop that you use to attack, or part of your offensive loop, when they should be a part of the toolkit. They're overused and they feel too powerful, especially considering how unbalanced some of them are. And I think the charging itself is a bit ridiculous. Some seconds should not be the time it takes to charge Wirebug skills, because then you can just spam them, you can literally spam them and it destroys some weapons. For example, Hammer is all about Impact Crater, which is really sad. I don't play Hammer, but it's a weapon I was actually thinking of using in World and Iceborne, because it's really interesting. I love KOing, I just like the moveset, I like the charge, I like the numbers. But in Rise it just doesn't appeal me at all, because the only thing you see them doing is Impact Crater. And this takes a lot from the weapon. It makes you burn out super quickly of a weapon if the entire rotation is just getting to that Wirebug skill again. And it's sad because, for example, Wirebug Whisper, yeah, it can be useful on some sets, but I consider it not useless skill, but not necessary at all. When if Wirebug cooldowns were bigger, then it could be worth. If it takes you longer to get some skills, and having all the cooldown you can, especially if they are DPS, would be really fucking cool. But in this instance, there's no need, they just recharge so quickly. And it just kind of puts you, as I was saying, in this loop, in this rotation where everything you do is just, it's fodder until you get to that skill. It's all fodder until you get to that big DPS move. You're just doing this on rotation because it's free, and for me, that's not how Monster Hunter combat should be. Monster Hunter is about using all your tools to kill the monster, but the Wirebugs take away from that. And they take away some agency, honestly, because we can all say, oh, it's as long as you have fun, it doesn't matter the time it takes. No, it does matter, I'm sorry, to me it matters. If I was using gun lance, if I was a gun lance man, I probably would not use a weapon. Reason being because, yeah, it's super fun, but when you're taking so long to kill every monster, then it stops being fun. Imagine farming with it, spending 20 minutes just getting there and chipping slowly but surely, and you waste more consumables because the monsters don't topple as much or they don't flinch as much, so there's more chances you'll get hit. And in this circumstance, that's why I do think that Wirebug skills are just, they're not, Wirebugs in general, they should be balanced. I do think they're too much at the moment. And yeah, for example with Hammer it's sad, dude, because if you don't use Impact Crater, your DPS will fall so much and it'll take so much longer to kill everything. Same if you're using Longsword without Soaring Kick, oh my god. I mean, it would still be fast, it's Longsword, come on, the perfect offense weapon. But the time would really go up, because you would not have such a good DPS skill, and I just don't think it's the correct way to implement Wirebugs. I'd prefer if they were more about buffing or debuffing the monster. I prefer if, for example, I don't know, one of these weapons had a Wirebug skill that made you, yeah, you did piss damage, but you inflicted like Water Blight on the monster or Thunder Blight, something like that. You know, it's more a support thing. Instead of just having to rotate it as many times as you can, you need to constantly be using these skills to inflict damage. I just don't think it's, I don't think it's the right vision for Wirebugs. If you're gonna keep them at such short cooldown, I don't think it's the way to go. I think it trivializes weapon movesets a lot, and I really hope it gets balanced in some way. It's fun, but it's too much in my opinion. Not even gonna get into Wirefall. Wirefall is just ridiculous. Honestly. That shit alongside the potions and whatnot. I don't know, for me I just remove Wirebugs entirely, honestly, and try to insert them in another way. I mean, we already have such skills that would kind of be the way you could insert them. I even tried to play Rise at the beginning without Wirebugs, and it's fine at the beginning, but then you start noticing the game starts being centered around them, be it because the monsters have such a large health pool. I mean, these monsters are high rank and they have the same HP pool as monsters in Master rank in Iceborne, so you start really needing those DPS moves, or for example Charge Blade. Sometimes you really start feeling the need for counter pick performance. You need to get those files fast to do more damage quickly, or just evading monster moves, because so many monsters have moves that they just require you to use a Wirebug. Well, not required, but you can see they were designed with the Wirebug in mind. You can still block them and whatnot, but you can see what the attempt of the designing was. Another new mechanic that, contrary to the others, I do actually like a lot is the switch skills. I do think that in Worlds, in terms of inputs, perhaps we were getting close to the limit. Some weapons were perhaps having too many inputs, or close to it in my opinion, because Monster Hunter isn't just a generic fighting game where you're pressing 7 buttons in a row with these combinations to make these powerful moves. That's not how the game works. And with World, although we weren't there, I do feel we were getting close. So I really appreciate Switch skills because they increase the possibilities without making you have to memorize more complicated patterns of buttons. And it's also good because it can provide multiple playstyles into a weapon. For example, with the Charge Blade, you can either have counter pick performance, which in my opinion is one of the best skills in the game. But if you're fighting more aerial monsters, you can switch to Axe Hopper. I do prefer to use Axe Hopper on the Rassalis family. They're actually the only monster that I use Axe Hopper on. And even then, sometimes I use Axe Hopper. It's pretty funny just thinking about it. I don't even use it for flying monsters. Just counter pick performance is that good. But yeah, I really do appreciate how they gave us different playstyles for those weapons. For example, with the dual blades, you have Demon Flight, which focuses more on air style dual blades, which is a really refreshing way to play the weapon. I mean, some people just play dual blades on air, while others stay on the ground, and that's really awesome because it allows you to use the weapon differently. It allows you to feel the weapon in a different light. And I think moving on, they should start becoming a staple. I do think they should be more diverse. Perhaps 3 isn't enough. We'll see in Sunbreak what they do, because, well, it's weird because I do think that the weapon in general should have the same core mechanics. So if you go to him with the switch skills and you can alter literally everything, every single attack on the weapon, then is it even the weapon anymore? I mean, I guess because it keeps the core mechanics, but at the same time, perhaps too much diversity. I don't think they'd go that far, but I do think we'll have more options for switch skills, as in more slots in Sunbreak. I do think the only issue with switch skills is the balancing. Some of them are just, why even use them when the other is just so good? And it's the same with Wirebug skills, but since we have more switch skills at the moment, then I'd be more focused on that. For example, I don't know why I have some of the switch skills on Light Bogan when they're just not worth it at all. For example, the elemental reload, yes, it increases elemental damage, yeah, but reloading becomes so much slower. It just makes you more prone to monster attacks, so I do think they just need to be a bit more careful on the balancing side, but we'll see. I do think they should become a staple though. I think it introduces a lot of creativity and different ways to deal with monsters. Perhaps I'm not good at using aerial on a specific monster, but I can alter my moveset enough to be able to deal with him my own way. I think it's a better philosophy than just everyone using the same thing, but just not needing to become better, but trying to replicate what the people do correctly. So perhaps we'll move that way in the future. But I do think switch skills are, I think they're the best mechanic. Yeah, I really do think so. In Rise, of course, I think they're the best mechanic. Then there's Palamutes. Palamutes are whatever to me, I don't really use them. You can tell the maps are made with Palamutes in mind, but in general, I still use 2 cats, I'm Team Cat. But Palamutes are fun, they give you a different way of using the buddy system. They're pretty good, but I do think they're a bit underwhelming in casual play. The reason I say this is because the best thing about the Palamutes are they're just status machines. They put statuses so quickly, especially with the Parasol gear. They just put the statuses in seconds. So it's better for shorter fights, which is speedruns, but in a more casual playground, then yeah, the statuses are nice. You can use it for sharpening and whatnot, but then for healing, but Wirefall allows you to heal quickly. Super easy to fit speed sharpening or just use a great wet fish. They're not hard to farm. So the utility is nice, but in general I think Palicos are better in casual play. I'd just like to see them becoming better at what they do in statuses. I think they should be able to inflict blights. I really dislike how blights are just exclusive to Wyvern riding or just to picking up beetles. Yeah, that's nice, but I do think that the more consistent way of applying them would be good, especially to increase the value of those blight exploits on the ramp up skills, because they're fucking useless right now. No one uses that shit. Why would I use this? Maybe I'm fighting the monster in the map that doesn't even have a beetle that I can use to exploit my blight. For example, I'm pretty sure there's no white beetle in the fuck is that thing called? The lava caverns? Pretty sure there's no ice beetle there, so... And lava caverns, a lot of monsters are weak to water and ice, so why the fuck would I use ice blight in this map? There's no point. So I think the best approach for us to have better access to the blights would be with Palamutes. Just buff them a bit. I think Palicos are already too good, honestly, so I'd like to see a buff in Palamutes. Then of course we have the Rampage, which I don't know, Rampage is weird for me. Sorry, just adjusting my headset. Rampages are a bit weird for me, honestly. Most people hate them. I don't really hate them. I think they're fine here and there. I don't really like doing them solo. They're better in group. But overall, I'm not the biggest fan. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't mind how they included them in the story. You have to do 3 of them in the story, I'm pretty sure. The first one, or 4. Well, there's the tutorial Rampage. I guess that would not count. I don't know. No, let's not count that one. There's the one Rampage is in the hub, not the Apex or the Rose Run. I think it's a urgent quest in low rank hub for a Racine or something. It's a Rampage. Then there's the Arzuros Rampage, the Apex one. Then there's the Bushi Rampage. And 3 of them, for me that's super fine. The only time I was really burnt out of doing Rampages was when I was trying to farm Bushi Orbs in 1.0. And on PC when I had to unlock all the Apexes, because I'm pretty sure you have to beat the Apexes in the Rampage first for them to become available as normal quests. So that was really boring to me because I did all of them at the same time. But overall, I mean, it's just tower defense, it's whatever, but they're quick, especially if you know what you're doing. They're super quick. They'll take 10 minutes. If you're in a group, even less. So I don't mind them that much. I'm not sure if they're gonna come back to Sunbreak at all because they were tied to the story of Ibushi and Nawa, but I could just see them saying, oh, Malzino, he's infected the monsters, they're rampaging or something like that, some bullshit. It's not like Monster Hunter cares about story and consistency, they just do whatever. So I don't know, it would be weird for them to just abandon them, especially if you think about it. We have a ton of stuff linked to Rampage. We have the Rampage weapons, we have the Apex monsters, which I do think they would continue producing in Sunbreak. We have the ramp up skills. What else we have? I think that's it. Yeah, but just, I mean, ramp up skills, what? Are they gonna remove ramp up skills in the game? Are they gonna give us other options of applying ramp up skills? Maybe just materials, I could see that. But I don't know, I think we'll still have Rampages. I just think they won't be a part of the story. They'll be there. If you wanna do them, sure, go ahead. If you don't, you don't. Kind of like the guiding lands in a way. It was there, a way of getting stronger. In this case with Rise ramp up skills and Rampage weapons. If you wanted to do it, sure, get the augments, get the ramp up skills. If you don't, that's on you. So it will probably stay there just as side content. But if there's one thing Rampages are useful at, is for defender tickets, which you can use for the fucking dreaded talisman farming. Now, it's weird because I don't know of a single person that likes this system. It's so boring. It's not engaging at all. It's such a hassle. The melding pot is horrible. I prefer, honestly, in theory, I prefer craftable decorations with charm drops. I'm not one of these guys that says, let's go back to world. No. My view on this is that some decorations, they were a bit too rare and they were mandatory for your sets. I think I said this before, but I heard of people who went base world and Iceborne without a mighty bow deco, and that's just ridiculous. So the decoration system literally stopped you from being able to use a weapon to its full potential. If they're craftable, that doesn't happen. So I really don't buy that argument. I think it's shit of, oh, but those were 1 in 1,000. A good charm is 1 in billions. Yeah, but the thing is, you don't really need a god charm. If you have a decent charm with some good skill slots, you can still make do of it, and you can craft whatever decoration you want. So I do think it's more in the player's agency in that regard. That's why I prefer this method, because the charm doesn't just outright block you in most cases of doing a good set. Decorations did. If you're using a weapon like sword and shield and you didn't have crit decorations, you're fucked, or weakness exploit. So I do prefer craftable decorations, and I did like how they went over it in this game. I do think some decorations were a bit too ridiculous. For example, the handicraft decoration requires Kushala horns, which you don't get many of per Kushala hunt, and the Magnum Mallow orb, which is ridiculous to find. The good luck decoration, which you would want to use to get better drops, is locked behind Almudron orbs, which are another one of the rarest orbs, so ridiculous as well. So I do think they went a bit overboard. I prefer giving 5 plates than 1 orb, but that's not the case here. So hopefully in Sunbreak they'll relax a bit with it. But overall I prefer this system of random charms and craftable decorations, but I think the implementation in Rise is the worst it could be. As I was saying, the melding pot is unengaging. It stops you from doing your farming, your questing to go back to the pot, put some random materials, have to look at the materials to decide which ones you want, and then just put them in, come back after a ton of quests, because doing one by one it's a waste of time. You will be at the pot literally after every hunt. I mean, that's so torture, don't do that to yourself. But I do think it's such a hassle, so unnecessary. People say you can hunt whatever you want. Well, yes I can, but if I'm farming for a charm I want to be efficient. Come on, that argument is so stupid. What, so if I want to kill Gretizuchi because I like the monster? Yeah, I mean I can do it, but it's gonna take me forever. So of course I'm gonna find an optimized way of doing so, because I want to charms quickly, because I want to build my sets to face the strong monsters. I mean, not like you really need amazing sets to fight the monsters in this game, since it's easier than most, but you get my point. I just don't understand why they don't drop at the end of the quest. That's so much better. I remember my first crit boost decoration, crit boost. Oh my god. It was after a behemoth. The first time I beat behemoth, I got a crit boost decoration. And I was so happy. I still remember it. Like, holy shit. That time with behemoth it was super hard, but I managed to beat it and I got my first crit boost decoration. Like, that's a story that you have. A hard fight that was properly compensated. With Rise, what you say, oh, I went to the pod for try number 2000 and I finally got my good charm. Wow, so exciting. So I hope they have other ways that aren't such a hassle that don't stop you from going about your life. Just make them drop. Just make them drop after rounds. As I said, I love to have a memorable story about the Arise charm. Come on, but in the current process, it's literally impossible. Everyone complains about charm. I mean, makes sense. The method is just not good at all. I really hope they look into this. But by fucking far, the worst mechanic in this game is fucking Wyvern riding. I hate Wyvern riding. I don't understand what they had in mind. I really don't. I think what I hate about it the most is how intrusive it is. I hate how there's no option for us to just say, no, I don't want to ride the monster, I want to keep boiling on it. It's literally mandatory. Yes, you can wait a fuck ton, but by then you're already cold. You're warming up with the monster and you're already cold again because you have to wait so much for it to go away. But it just stops the flow of combat. It's so boring, and you're just pressing buttons to attack the other monster if there's a monster. If not, you're just banging the monster into a wall. I wasn't a fan of mounting either, but at least it was more like a tussle between you and the monster, you know. You had the minigame, they were trying to kick you off and you're jumping to different parts and stabbing them. That was much cooler than just using Wirebugs to send it into a wall. Like, okay, this isn't Iceborne, this isn't a Clutch Claw, come on. I hated the Clutch Claw, move on. This reminds me of it. Because of how mandatory it is and how intrusive. It's literally Clutch Claw from Iceborne, and it just pisses me off so much. Especially, alright, if it was just with the monster you're fighting, I could tolerate it. Just bang it once into the wall, it's done, I get a topple, fine. Interrupts the flow a bit, but I'll take it. But the fact that every fucking hunt, there's some stupid monster coming out of nowhere to attack this monster, then you have to Wyvern ride, and then you have to attack the monster to get materials, and then launch the monster into the other one so you can ride the other one to damage the target monster, and you can't stop any of this because they literally force you to do it. Is beyond baffling, and it goes against the game's design. Monster Hunter is about giving you options. With mounting, you could just drop from the monster. Fuck this, I don't want to do this, and you dropped. If you didn't like it, fine, don't do it. You'll get it, takes a couple of seconds to come off, done. But with this is ridiculous. I don't understand how they did this. There was this one time, I think I actually recorded this, I was fighting a Kushala and I had to Wyvern ride 3 times. I was this point in which I was fighting 2 monsters in a row with Wyvern riding. It was such a mess, it's so ridiculous, it's so unnecessary. But I could just say, okay, you tried something new, it didn't work, shit happens. But the fact that they literally force it upon you, it's awful. I hate this mechanic. I hope it's gone in Sunbreak. Or if it's not gone, I know they won't do this because they want you to use the systems they made, their little gimmicks. But please just have like a way that we can just not activate Wyvern riding. Please just do that. Either a setting, which would never happen if we had the setting to disable it, but at least make it so that, let's say you need to have your weapon cheated and uncheated, yeah, you need to save your weapon and you need to click a combination of buttons that is non-existent for something else, so that you can actually do it, and make it so that the window to Wyvern ride is much smaller. Sorry, it's the worst mechanic I've ever seen in a Monster Hunter game. Like, it's ridiculous. It's worse than anything Geo can throw at you, in my honest opinion. But yeah, I mean, overall, I went over the mechanics. Overall, I still did enjoy Rise, yes. I know it might have seemed like I just trashed it, but I enjoyed the game. It's a fun game, it's a good game. But overall, the way I see it with Rise is the portable team went a bit crazy with testing out new gimmicks, because that's kind of how they do things nowadays. The main team, the console team, they just do a blockbuster, you know. There's not even that much in terms of innovation and stupid gimmicks. It's just a good Monster Hunter game. Portable team is where they go a bit wild to try and see what sticks. For example, I take switch skills should stick. I think the issue with Rise is that people see it in this way. How do I put it? It's weird because as I said, I don't think Rise is a bad game. Not at all. It's just that I do believe they tried too many gimmicks. Perhaps they should have split them. Maybe try some in base Rise, save some for Sunbreak. For example, they could have saved Wyvern Ride for Rise. They saw, okay, this is shit, no one likes it. Well, we know what not to add in Sunbreak. But I think they went too overboard in Rise, and sometimes they just don't stick. And in this case, I think it's just, I won't say they fucked up, I'll just say that they tried, but most of the stuff they experimented with just isn't to most people's liking. But overall, I don't think it's a bad game. I enjoyed it. I liked my grind, I liked my progression. Yeah, it got a bit tedious from HR 60 or something, or 50 to 100. It does get a bit boring. At the later ranks, I was just farming, you know, so I can understand people who are just playing the game for experimenting the monsters that they don't want to dedicate themselves to the grind. How the grind to HR 100 would kind of put them off, but for me, I like grinding and I like making the best sets. I think it was fine, a bit boring at times, but hey, you can do Rampages, they give a ton of HR. But yeah, going back to my point, overall, I don't think Rise is a bad game. I understand why people may shit on it, sometimes a bit too much, but I also think a big part of that is because Monster Hunter grew so much with Sword and Iceborne. We had so many new players that they expected Monster Hunter to be just that. They didn't understand this concept of the portable team and how they handled their games. It's the same with content. Like, World focused more on this pseudo live service, while Rise is more so of a done game. You do everything, you can keep playing of course, but pretty much ends here. It's just the philosophy of the portable team, and I just think a ton of people fail to understand that. I don't think you should be asking for a world when this is Rise. You need to understand the difference between why Rise is this way and why World was the way that it was. I just feel this concept, most people can't grasp it. Because the portable team did their job. You can't say Rise is a bad game if that's your opinion, fine. But you can't say that this isn't what the portable team intended. If you look at the portable team's other games, you can see that this is their philosophy. They did what they wanted. Now, if it fell well with the public, if it was to our liking, that's another conversation. But you can see that they did this the way they intended to, because at the end of the day, I think that's what matters. That they were able to provide us the experience that they wanted, because then if we don't like it, we can give feedback and they can listen to it. So it's good for us to have received the game in the way that the team wanted us to receive it. Of course, as I said, most of the gimmicks and the exclusive Rise stuff didn't really fit well with me. Obviously, I would have preferred if this was a bit more like World, where it had more quality of life and had less bullshit. It was more about learning the weapon, being deliberate. The combat was perfectly fast in my opinion. It was perfect, the flow of combat. With Rise it's too much. So yes, obviously, if you ask me, I prefer World, but I know what I'm getting into when I play Rise. If I want to play World, I play World. I know what's happening and what's my experience gonna be like when I click Monster Hunter Rise on my folder. And I just think people need to stop being so bitchy because of that. Hopefully this is understandable for the future, because sometimes when I look at the pages, like their Instagram page, you just see people bitching all the time. Oh, no more weapons, no more monsters. Well, yes, that's because the team who made this game had something in mind. They had a vision in mind, and they fulfilled their vision. If it's not your liking, bro, go back to World. That's it. You can provide feedback, but don't be on every Instagram post on the Monster Hunter page complaining about it. It's just, it becomes annoying. But yeah, I think if people were willing to make the separation and understand what they were getting to, I think it would be completely fine. I think way less people would hate it. It's just that people are coming to this game and wanting a different game. That doesn't make any sense at all. Of course it's fine to criticize, but you have to understand why you're criticizing, and if it's something that should be changed. Rise isn't gonna slow down. It's not gonna become World in Sunbreak. It's not. It's clear that the philosophy for this game was to be fast, to be more so like a boss rush. That's how they want to take the game. They can make some tweaks, but overall that's gonna be the philosophy of the game. So if you don't want that, then you have to go somewhere else. That's why so many people are still playing World and Iceborne, because they prefer that experience. It's more to their liking, so they stayed there. But yeah, that's about it on that topic. Just wanted to rant a bit. It's just annoying when I see the same complaints all the time. Play a different game, bro. I prefer World much more. World for me is way above Rise in terms of my taste, but I play Rise because I want to and I know what to expect when I load it. I guess I could also, well, I was gonna talk a bit about the content and how people say there's a lack of it. There is, but I kind of covered everything I could in my previous point. It was the team's philosophy. They wanted this kind of game. They wanted an experience that people could go through in a timely manner, and that's it. That's why there's no 10,000 systems and more monsters every month. I would also prefer for them to add more monsters, but as I said, this isn't a pseudo live service, so they're doing it as they intended. Obviously, things can go better in Sunbreak. As I said, the philosophy is not gonna change of fast-paced combat. That's not gonna change. They're not gonna get for you in Sunbreak. But I do hope they tweak a lot of the gimmicks. As I said, too many of them, and unfortunately most didn't bode well with the community. But perhaps that's something they're looking into, how to balance them, or removing them completely, like Wyvern did. Please do this. But yeah, overall, Rise is a good game. I can complain a lot, like I did, but overall, I think it's a good game. I'm not complaining just to be a fucking ass. It's just, I like the game and I want to see it improve. Those are just my views on how it could become a better game. But yeah, so that about wraps it up. Like, the game overall was pretty good reliving it on PC. Of course, I'm still gonna keep playing. I'm not done. There's a ton of event quests I haven't touched at all. I haven't even touched the Super Ibushis. I haven't touched any of the super monsters. Rajang, Ibushi, Narwa, Almother, the Apexes. I haven't done any of those. I was still grinding for some gear, so that's gonna be my goal in the short future, to do those event quests. Hopefully the PC version will catch up soon. With the Switch one, I'm pretty sure in February it will be caught up. And yeah, that's about it. And for the meantime, I don't know, I may put some videos on me trying to clear the Apex emergencies for the first time, because I don't know what to expect. I know they hit harder, they have more HP, so what would really be the point? But I don't know, I think just randomly getting one shot could be good content, of course. But anyway, holy shit, this is almost 1 hour long. I really rambled today. Anyway, I'm gonna end this here, and hopefully I'll see you in the short future. Stay tuned. Hopefully, oh no, Sunbreak news is only in spring, so March minimum. I thought we would get more soon, but well, I'll see you soon in either case, trust me. Anyway, gonna leave. Peace.